Hi, this is Liz, and welcome to my podcast, Spiritually Speaking with Liz. Before we start with today's guest, I'd just like to remind you to like, follow, and subscribe on the YouTube channel and on your podcast app if you can follow and like and leave any comments on either. I'd love to hear your bits and pieces of what's going on, or even suggestions of things that you'd like me to do. Okay, today I'm very excited because I'm joined by Kevin Kelly. So, Kevin's spiritual journey, I think, is really inspiring to a lot of people. And I shouldn't probably say this, but you wouldn't believe it by when you hear his full job title, which I'm going to read properly. So, Kevin is Chief Inspector Kevin Kelly, and he is the head of National Wildlife Crime Unit, and he's responsible for the UK's policing response to wildlife crime domestically and internationally. So, Kevin, thank you for joining me.
Liz, thank you. You make it sound so grand.
It is grand. It is grand. And then I know what everybody's bursting to know is how is a chief inspector, a high ranking um, officer, on his spiritual journey? How did it begin?
Well, I think taking it back to early stages, it's probably always been there. And I think one of the issues with men in particular is the acknowledgement of where you are spiritually and where you are on your spiritual journey. And my childhood was really interesting, and it was fairly straightforward. A child in the 80s, grew up on a council estate, but I was a bit of a lost boy. And that reflected through to being a bit of a lost man, really looking for his calling in life. But it was hiding in plain sight, and I was living it, and I was there, and I just had to acknowledge it and embrace it. And it's been a really interesting journey. And when you get to a position where you can acknowledge where you are spiritually, a lot of things in life start making sense.
They do. They do. So let's go back to your childhood then. So that little lost boy, do you think that was because you knew that there was something spiritually, that there was something bigger than you when you couldn't comprehend it? Do you think that did you see anything? Did you hear anything? Did you feel at
All,
that
all,
point?
all of the above, Liz.
Wow.
So kind of young Kev as a boy. Was I was always different. I think I've always known that, and um, eh, different's not the best word to summarize it. And if I was, explaining to my children if they were in my position, I'd say, you're special.
Yeah.
You're unique. You're gifted. And I was a bit of an old soul. And I never really fit in. Was never with the in crowd, but never really unpopular. Always had this trait in life of needing my own time. So never so much a loner because I'm really good around people. And I think when I'm around people, I bring the best out in them. And now I understand my place spiritually. I need my own time for me just to kind of reset my energy. And I think that's always reflected through my life. And growing up as well, my parents were from very different backgrounds. So my dad is Irish Catholic background, and my mum was from an Orthodox Jewish background.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, religion was really present. So again, when you go to that, was there, what did you feel? How did you feel? How did you go through your life? I had these two really dominant strains of religious understanding that I've been exposed to, and I wouldn't have it any other way because it's given me a really good grounding. But going back to the earlier bit, did you feel? Did you see? Did you hear? My mum used to think I was kind of mad as a young child, and she used to relay this fantastic story. And she's like, you'd be in your bedroom talking. And you'd be talking to your nana as if you was having a conversation that she was still there and she'd passed, and
Oh,
and I'm not saying I'm a psychic or anything like that. I certainly don't do that. But it just helps me understand now some of those things that were quite difficult, when you're being told stop it or we'll take you to the doctors. Now you understand
really? Yeah,
that you can
yeah.
be, that from a young age I've been very intuitive, and that's followed me through life.
I think that's a better word, intuitive,
Yeah,
because it's that intuition, isn't it? That gut feeling that is, in my opinion, what drives us, what protects us, what takes us further, what
yeah, yeah.
expands us, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it can be a scary thing, I think, as a child, but also, as I move further through teens, and you go off, and I think in your teenage years, fair to say in my own sense, and and I'm sure I speak on behalf of others, you lose a bit of your life as you're growing up and you're exploring the world and doing what
Yeah.
young adults do and teenagers do, but actually that kind of deep-seated connection never really goes, and then at certain points in your life, they get back on track. And I mean, 2016 was a big thing for me. That's a big turning point in my life. But before that, and in the run up to it, I mean, I joined the police in 2003, and I was just a bit of a kind of a round peg in a square hole, really. So I'd always say I'd been able to do my job, always done it honestly and thrown everything into it, but just saw things slightly differently. And one of the things that helped me cope was my affinity to animals.
Mhm.
So, I've never really been like that in crowd, so what I was saying, never really fit in, but never really been the odd one out, and that really reflected when I joined the police. So kind of shift nights out, and just never really appealed to me. And one of the coping mechanisms I had was when I found out quite early on in my career that animals would get abused. So having that affinity before police really helped me. Kind of identify me and help me on my life journey, but also through my career. What put kind of money in the bank and food on the table was being able to do something that I was really passionate about, and that's led me on a now 20-year journey from a PC. In the Selby district of North Yorkshire, being told if you bring anybody in for tampering with animals, or and it was actually hare coursing that I was looking at the time, but my seniors just didn't quite get it. If you're not bringing burglars in and drug dealers, and get it, there's a place for it. But if you keep bringing them in, you'll be out of a job. And then it just so happened that it turns out that the people that I were bringing in were your burglars and your drug dealers, but they were just doing what kind of criminals do on the days off when they're not burgling and drug dealing. But for me, it really helped because I was protecting the animals, and I saw the brutality that went on. Saw the way that people were oppressed because wildlife crime goes on. It's about animals and it's about people as well, and it impacts society. But it's something I've always really believed in. People who harm animals harm humans, and I think that's been part of my calling within policing, to show that and to get that point across. And we're just about there, showing that people who would abuse animals can go on to abuse people. When we look at how we approach domestic violence and violence against women and girls, it's critically important that we take wildlife crime seriously. But then it matters to me a lot because I like to protect animals. So that's kind of put me into the round peg to round hole. Now I've gone through that journey, as I say, 20 years across 4 different ranks now, and I've been the constable, stood in the chief inspector's office, being told if you do that again, you're going to be out of a job. Get out and do some proper policing. To the chief inspector that leads a national unit. It's my job to oversee, with my team of 22, the UK's response to policing wildlife crime nationally and internationally as well. It's something I'm immensely proud of. Um,
Absolutely. And so you should be.
I am, absolutely. I am, and it's a tough job. It's a difficult job. It's something I'm really dedicated towards. But I know that within my calling and within my role to play, this is what I've got to do: is get this unit, get this issue within society to a position where it's dealt with as daily business and it's dealt with really well.
Very important. And I have to ask you, how do you, as an animal lover, how do you personally cope with the things that you're seeing or the things that you're hearing about? How do you, when you leave work, yes, you've got the amazing feeling that you are making a difference, but how do you, obviously we're not going to go into anything graphic, but how do you take any images out of your head, or how, I'm just thinking how I would be. How do you cope with that? How do you sort of,
It,
do you split it, or what happens in the brain?
Policing's intrinsically difficult anyway. And there's lots of things I always say, like as a cop, you don't deal in people's good news. So you very rarely knock on someone's door and say, I'm here, congratulations.
Yeah.
It's usually the absolute opposite to that. And that goes with wildlife crime policing. So like, without being too strategic or too policing works on threat and risk. So basically, finite resources go to where the risk is, i.e., people who could get hurt, people who are really vulnerable, people who need protecting. So wildlife crime sits at the bottom. I've really kind of dedicated my time to show that it is important, because the people who cause the most harm also, commit crime in other areas. But that aside, what you see is difficult. But I think quite early on, I understood that because it's my calling, my role to do this at this point in my life, I have to accept that. And I'm comfortable with it. It hurts, it hurts on a daily basis, and I'm comfortable with it. But I always say everything happens for you and nothing happens to you. And when I do see something really bad, what I can do is turn that around and say, I am giving a voice to the voiceless. I'm standing up for those who cannot protect themselves. And without me going through this experience, life would be terrible,
It
for
would.
that animal, for that species. And, I think a lot of, your life and your journey is how you frame things as well. So there are some difficult times, and I genuinely have seen the worst of the worst. And my policing career has taken me in varied directions. I've been a detective, I've worked in major crime, murder investigations. The bulk of it, and my passion's always been wildlife crime. And actually, the images, life scars, and things you would want to erase sit within that arena as well, because there's some absolute brutality. But someone's got to do it, and someone's got to protect them.
Yeah, yeah. This is it. We don't think of it. I was just thinking it from the point of when I used to work as a therapist, however people came to me for whatever modality, when somebody told me something upsetting, that was happening to them, I'm very empathic. So I would feel that emotion that they were telling me as if it's happening to me. And sometimes, yes, it was when I was younger, so I didn't have the experience then, but I found that really hard to shed a lot of the time. It could sit with me for days if I'd see, if I'd felt something disturbing. So
Yeah.
I'm just thinking I was coming from that point of view as you seeing something
Mm.
disturbing.
Yeah, and I have, kind of, yeah, I suppose you become hardened to it. You do become institutionalized, and you get to understand that is your job. You also have coping mechanisms as well. But you're right around the empathy side of things, and you can go home and have a really bad day, and part of your coping strategies. I've been the one who's gone home, had a bad day, and sunk a few beers, and but now I can come home, exercise, meditate, and just get that out of there. But it's a really interesting point around being empathetic and being able to accept emotions, kind of acknowledge an emotion and acknowledge a feeling, but don't become it. And I think when we're talking around men in spirituality as well, that's something that it's a really salient point to discuss, because why do men go insular when we want to be open when we talk around spirituality? I mean, come on, there can't be just me sat here in the world,
No.
that is, kind of, I've got a day job, I've got a family, I've got everything else, but I am, a part of my journey specifically over the last few years, I have had the gift and the beauty of finding spirituality, and I really feel like I am living my life, living my life from my heart, standing up to my true calling and going on my journey. It ain't just me. There's other people out there, so come on, lads.
Yeah, well, yeah, but the thing is that guys are scared because
Yeah.
they're scared of being ridiculed. And so thinking about particularly in a big organization like the police force, then without I would imagine that that's quite a patriarchal type static gridded place, if that makes sense, that
Yeah.
it's this is how it is, it all fits within these squares, and spirituality doesn't fit within those
Yeah.
squares. So how does that work for you, and how so like your team of 22, I didn't realize it was 22, by the way. That's as Kevin knows my number,
Yep.
22. Here we go again. So what out of the 22, what's the ratio of men and women? Not that it really matters, I'm just curious.
Uh, it's fairly split. I'll do some name counting now. So nine women.
Right, okay.
So,
So with the guys, well, and with the women, how do you so what we've spoken about, this being your calling and being hardened to it, and your spiritual practice helps you to deal with it. How do you do you pass that on to your team? So you must come across some cases where you'll look and think, actually, this person A seems to be really quite struggling with that. How can you bring spirituality to them?
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. And just going back to when you said about policing being quite rigid, and we do, we have strategies which tell us what to do, and we follow our leaders. So you're quite right, and that was one of the big struggles, as you know, when I come to you, and I was like, "Liz, my life's a mess, and I don't know what's going on," and you're like, "It's fine. This is what's happening." Because you need that fluidity, and while structure is good, you actually just need to be a little bit fluid as well. And I adopt that into how we go about our team. So, I mean, I've got a fantastic team. I do say I'm there, I'm guesting with them for a period of time, and they're the real kind of winners. And it's a pleasure to kind of lead them. But throughout that leadership, we have policing hat on. We've got strategy. We've got performance indicators. We need to know what we need to do to protect people and protect animals. But outside of that, I also need to protect my people and bring the best out in them. And I always say, I mean, I do various things with the team. I told you recently I did a group meditation, and I thought they'd all think that I'd genuinely gone bonkers, and they loved it. They absolutely loved it. But for me, that was a big fear of mine because I do that daily. That's
Yeah.
part of my ritual,
Mm. Well,
and part of my
you were
coping
sharing
mechanism.
you with them. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Very
totally.
personal.
They saw the real raw, vulnerable me, and actually the conversations that we've had from that have been great because it's helped build the individuals, and selfishly, as kind of leader of the team, it's kind of really helped boost a bit of performance as well. So, we put our well-being hours into work where I'll give my team, time to focus on themselves, and we'll do group sessions as well. We encourage open talking, and I think the you can look at leadership in many ways, but it's not always, being the first across the line. For me, it's about getting my team over the line and me potentially finishing last, and that I'm really comfortable with that. So in that vein, it is absolutely down to me to be really upfront with the people I work with and my team, and starting with them is saying, look, this is me, this is how I live my life, and I've always been quite open with where I fit within this kind of spiritual jigsaw. And I think that honesty reflects really well. And again, which is why I'm here today. And it's a bit of a bold move because obviously who I am and what I do, everything I say can be on front page of the press. There's no issue with that, but I'm not scared because there's other people in my position who need to speak up and need to accept. And you look with kind of male attitudes in society. There's so much going on with mental health, which affects men and women.
Yeah.
But there's always that strap line of men can't talk. It's okay not to be okay. Please speak up. I'm here for you. And I genuinely believe that embracing spirituality, being able to kind of look into yourself, understanding that nothing happens to you, everything happens for you, seeing the good in everything would be a really good cornerstone to start helping people overcome and actually do. I don't work with people because I don't do anything spiritually for employment as a living. Um, but naturally, I, I'm a leader naturally. I get paid for it, but I do that outside, and I think people come to me because energetically I attract people and I help people. So I don't do it in a professional um, context, but I do help people who do struggle, mentally. And I have my kind of peer groups that I work with, and that's something additionally that I do. And a lot of the coping mechanisms that I use that I can help other people with come from that understanding of spirituality. And just don't be scared. Don't be scared of it. It can be a lifestyle. It can be a belief. Can be something that you can drop in and out of when the time's right. Um, but it's got to work for you, and you've got to be prepared to be open to it and accept what's kind of coming when you go through those practices.
Absolutely. So when you go back to the 20 years ago to the constable,
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, from where you are now, what advice could you give him, do you think?
You've got nothing to be scared of, and I think that's key. You've absolutely got nothing to fear. Looking at where I am now, and I can even use that of should I come on here and speak openly like this, but actually, yes, I should do this because I have got nothing to be scared of, and nothing can hurt you unless you give it permission to do so. So anything I say today, nobody can hurt me with anything I say because it's coming from my heart. It's coming from something I believe in, and also think about how you frame things and how you see things. So, I've said a couple of times, everything happens for you. Things very rarely happen to you. And putting that in a non-spiritual context is grief. When I lost mum, I chose to celebrate her life, and that helped me. If you lose a job, look at it as an opportunity to get better and overcome, or a relationship breaks down, it's an opportunity for new growth. And likewise, if you are wanting to explore anything in life, really, spirituality, who you are, what your inner calling is, any ambitions that you've got, don't be scared. Don't build your own blockers. That's the first bit of advice. Second, from what I've learned from taking number one is trust your intuition. Trust your intuition, absolutely. And if it feels right, then it probably is right. And it's making those those decisions kind of from a place of love. Make your decisions from your heart, detach your ego.
Mhm.
You know, don't force it. I always think, and a lot of the conversations that I have with people is, this is where I am on my spiritual journey, but I'm not there. And, and what's the answer? And I know when I first started kind of, you know, building the relationship with you, Liz, what I like, and especially, and I think that's a typical cop thing, is that being in an environment where you ask a question and get an answer, specifically at the role and rank that was at the time. You want to know things and you usually get answers, but the beauty of living a very holistic, love-filled spiritual life is you don't actually need them, and you've just got to trust in the journey.
Yeah.
And things will come. When the student's ready, the teacher will appear, which is something from a book that you gave me, and I always stand on that. And that kind of summarizes our interactions and relationships. And I mean, for me, I was like, right, Liz, where am I going to be? What am I going to do? Am I going to be a psychic? Am I going to read tarot cards? Am I going to be a healer? What am I? And you're just like, just allow it, Kev, chill out, go for it. And at that time, I couldn't, but now I love it. I love the fact that whatever happens, it will be fine. It will be okay, because this is how I live my life. And I think the last piece of advice would be, and I know this is a difficult one for people to ingest, specifically men, specifically anybody in a professional capacity, or, if you're one of the lads down the pub and it's a bit woe and a bit way and whatever, because it might show weakness. And trust me, it doesn't show weakness. Is live your life from a place of love. See the best. Really tap into what it means, and that's not like loving your dog, or loving your favorite takeaway on a Saturday night. It being that energetic version of love where you can make those decisions from the heart. And touching upon what I said is, you're faced with a situation and you make a really quick decision. It's probably come from your head. And there's times in life when you've got to do that, specifically within my role and previous roles, when I've got to make really assured decisions where it's a matter of life or death. But realistically, living that spiritual life and developing yourself and wanting the best for others, think about your decisions that you make. And a decision from the heart will probably lead you to a satisfied life. But decisions from the head, for me specifically, if I rush into it, I usually find they could involve judgment, and they definitely bring the ego into play as well. And I think that's a really important area, specifically for men, because ego is huge.
Yeah, it is. Well, I think that's amazing advice. And yeah, the ego it's huge in men and women. I think it's a constant battle that we're not battle, that's the wrong word, but it's constantly there. And it's how you choose to react. We've always got that choice, haven't we? Like the road rage, we've got that choice. Do we F and Jeff at the person that's just cut us up? Or do we just smile and say, let it go?
Yeah, really grateful that I didn't have a crash. Have a nice day.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
that's, but sometimes, you can't not slip into the other one, because,
no.
unlearning behaviors and breaking cycles that you've had for such a long time is really difficult.
Mm,
But that's part of the daily work. That's just as important as doing your meditations for me. And I also think like understanding the ego, and I always try to get this into conversation with different people of actually what does it mean to you. So for me, I see it, and this is bits that I've kind of seen in books from personal experiences. Like the ego for me is this external. It's the bit of the mind that probably tells you what you think everybody else wants to see you as.
mm,
And one of the Vex Kings books says it really well. It's where the subconscious mind meets the physical body. It's the bit in between there. The And that really kind of captures the ego for me. And if you can detach that, you don't really need it. You don't really need your ego, because if you are living in ego state, then you're probably living your life for somebody else, something else, or for a thought or a purpose that doesn't serve you. Whereas if you live it from the heart, it's best for everybody. And I always say as well, I spent a lot of work on myself, but also kind of with my team and with friends about self-serving decisions and selfish decisions.
mhm.
And doing something that's selfish, we know what selfish is, but doing something that's self-serving, don't trick yourself that it is a selfish decision, because a self-serving decision will make you the best person of that you can be, and then those around you will benefit from it.
Definitely. And that's always I think the importance of self-care is huge. And it is something that's put down as selfish,
Yeah,
or um silly things like my mum, we've just been doing some work in the house. It's not finished, and I'm fine with that. It was nice last week on my day off, so I chose to sit outside with a book and read. And I
absolutely.
really that 2 hours was just like reset for me. And then I spoke to my mum, what did you do today? Did you finish off what you were doing? No, no, I sat out in the garden and read. What? What did you've got all this to do? You've got that to do, because it's other people always put their expectation on you because I want that finished. I want that looking good. Where to me, that'll be here, whatever and whenever. But taking that time for me to sit outside for me is important
Yeah,
because it's important for everybody else in my life as well as just me. Because if I'm reset,
yeah.
then it ripples out to everybody else, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that, in life, that's the basics, but we sometimes don't do the basics brilliantly, and we should do. And I think you articulate that really well, Liz, as well, because that 2 hours reinvesting in you in the sun, when you're going to get that again is the first bit, which kind of almost kind of justifies and rationalizes it. But actually, you've got to take these opportunities, because
Yeah.
that's growth, that's investment in yourself, that's
Mm-hmm.
spiritual development, that's respite, that's well-being. And specifically for me, I've had to make a lot of decisions, as you know, over the last couple of years, and almost to the point where I've kind of pressed the reset button on my life, some people would say, because I'm in a very different position to where I were, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and it goes back to that reinvestment in yourself. You have
Mm.
to live your life for you. You've got to be true to yourself. You've got to be open and open to others, and it is those little things, like say 2 hours. Do you do your domestic chores, or do you sit in the sun with a book for 2 hours? It doesn't even feature.
No.
That doesn't go through my decision making process. I'm already sat outside with my book on my second chapter. Um, and that can be factored into many things that you do. And society and societal norms are quite a big thing as well. And I always say, like, I'm in a position with my older children now, leaving school, and eldest is driving, is nearly 18. And when I were in that position, it was like, right, you leave school, you get a job, and you work 9 to 5, and you settle down, and you buy your house, and you get married, and you come home at 5, have your tea at 6, watch the news at 7, and you do it and rinse and repeat kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I'm like, nah, no way. And like, oh, school are pressuring me for this, and I'm like, just go with it. What do you want to do? One wants to go traveling, other people, and I'm like, just live your dream, live your best life now, go for it. And for me, it was kind of the worst piece of societal advice was conform into what everybody else is doing, and that really it stifled me. So when I was going back to that kind of lost boy, lost man searching for his calling, and it was hiding in plain sight. A lot of that is because I was doing what was the norm, and I would genuinely, I wouldn't change it. Everything's happened at the right time for me to get me to here now, and but I wonder what I'd be like and life would be like if that advice at 16, 17, 18, 21 would have been, well, actually, don't worry too much about, picking a career that you'll still be doing when you're 60, because I can probably guarantee you won't be. Go out, travel, get experiences, eat nice food, talk to people, have fun, meditate, relax, look after yourself, be healthy. And I value life by experience and happiness now, where I used to value it by the size of my house, the car on my drive, and what people thought about me. And that's a bold statement to make.
But a lot of people do that. People. I remember that pressure at school because I left after O levels. I was, what was I? Was a year because of my birthday September, so I was in the year ahead of what I should have been. So then they decided that I couldn't leave education. So I went and did a secretarial course because I didn't know what to do. And so I was put on that. Very handy because I can type, which is great. So that there's always those little nuggets of things that we pick
Yeah,
up. But then I went into airlines, very hedonistic, very materialistic, and you lose yourself in that. You lose yourself in, like a late teens,
yeah,
in the partying, in the, just that blanking everything off, I think.
yeah. You
And
lose yourself trying to find yourself, and
yeah, yeah,
it's where you become ungrounded. And
yeah,
when you
very.
snap those roots, they take a long
Mm,
time to kind of fix back. So
they do. And that's, yeah, I went off traveling, as you know, and then it was that
yeah,
was my wake up call that, oh, hang on, there's a bit more going on here. And then it all starts unraveling and you start to remember things and think, oh, okay, then. So it is, but people's journeys are their journeys,
yeah,
and they're, you are the sum of your journey. If you hadn't have gone through what you've gone through, you wouldn't be sat here now. You wouldn't be in the position you're in now. You
absolutely.
wouldn't be doing what you're doing now. So I think we were, some people go through some horrific things, but we learn from them,
Yeah,
don't we? We learn
absolutely.
from we learn from these things. So let me ask you, because you've touched on it a few times, what would you say is your non-negotiable must do's every day for your own spiritual care?
Oh, absolutely, Medi, 100%. It's where it just clears everything out. And that's something I'm quite open about. And I went from a point of, you can have a whole discussion for an hour around like meditations and people's journeys around that. And one, it can be seen to be taboo, especially in men. It's like, what are you doing? You're not a hippie, you don't have long hair, kind of thing. And I'm like, well, I wish I had, but for those watching, I don't. Um, but why? Why are we doing this? Why isn't it being taught early on? It's the most basic of self-care
Mm.
that you can do. And I went from a point of having to wait till, planning my diary, having to wait till people were out of the house, and just to be able to like start being myself and being able to take myself off for 10 minutes, to now, I can do it anywhere. I could do it in the middle of, I could do it sat on the hard shoulder of the motorway, probably sat on the central reservation, and really get into it. So it's a progressive journey, and it's taken a long time to work on that. But that really matters to me, because that's my morning kind of reset, is that. And I like to journal as well. I think journaling really, really helps. And again, it's not what teenage girls do. It's not just kind of for them. This is really, really important. And
It is.
and and the bargaining chip, gentlemen and ladies, that I'll put down around the importance is that when you have a day and the mind's working against you, and you're up against it, is get everything out of there, out of your head, onto that piece of paper, look at it. And even if it's just that, it's out of your head and on the paper. So when you press the reset button the next day, it's not there. It's on the paper. That's where it stays. Sometimes, if you want to, and as you develop further, you can go back and look at it, and go through it, and not kind of manifest any bad out of it, but actually look for good things. So if I have particularly bad days, I actually try and look for what the good things are in there. And again, when you press that reset button the next day and move on, that really helps you and kind of resets your vibe and your mind space, for you to kind of park that and move forward and continue being those good. Point number 3, Yorkshire tea. I'm offended if I get anything but. So if I say a round tea bag, we're having a debate. So so yeah, I like a cup of tea as well. And just to sit and relax. I mean, there's a lot to be said when I've touched on earlier, like certainly not being a loner, but I just like my own space.
Yeah.
And I think knowing what I know now, and again, could have another hour's conversation on energy as people, and how that impacts on others, and what people take away, what you give to others, how you lift the mood, and all. I just need my own space just to reset.
Yeah.
And
Same.
sometimes I don't do it. Sometimes I read. Sometimes I write. Sometimes I'll go for a walk or ride my bike or go for But sometimes I just need to sit and do nothing sometimes. And I used to, and I still like nothing more than a bit of time off. Through the week if I'm owed some, or a day off, and just do now.
Mm.
And I love it. Sit outside and read your book. Or I did it
Absolutely.
last night for 2 hours, sat in front of the fire, and I did nothing. And Caroline, who my amazing, beautiful partner, came back, and I'm like, look, I haven't done it. I know we've got a house to renovate, but I just haven't done it. I've lit a fire and I've sat here, and you know what? I feel brilliant.
And that's what's important to her,
Yeah,
and that's what's important to everybody. It's that this is it. It's that happiness. It's keeping that happiness alight. As soon as it's snuffed out with the "I've got tos" and "I must" and "you
yeah,
should have," then you, like you say, you're not living your life for you, and you're not listening to you.
yeah. And and again, really, really important point you've made there, Liz, is that happiness in the small things. Don't lose sight of it, because
Mm,
again, we get tied up on, we must go here, we must do this, we must subscribe to that, we must watch to be, and there's so much to be grateful for, there's so much to be happy for. And I almost a bit reticent to say, because I'm putting a bit of a Yorkshire slant on it, is you can do this and it don't cost out. That's not me being Yorkshire.
no,
That's
it's true.
me
Yeah, yeah,
saying,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
there's
It's true.
lots of beautiful things around us,
Hmm.
and look for that beauty, look for that solace, because when it clicks, and everybody's individual, but you'll find your own little thing when you go out there. I mean, I've got my own little. We've moved into this new house, as you know, and I've got my tree in the garden and my work at the week, because I'm just drawn to it, and that's my space, and that's where I'll go. And when I have an hour off, and weather's as it is and reasonable, I'll be out there sat relaxing in nature, because that's really important to me.
Mm.
Is I love this time of year, bird song, seeing things grow, and it just really reflects that spiritual cycle, that life cycle. And it's just a really powerful time for me, is this. So yeah, feeling energized.
Yeah, no, I get that. It to me as well, springs are really, because I'm a real sun girl. So as
Yeah,
soon as the sun's out, then I'm happy, and I appreciate the winter, and I've really appreciated this winter particularly because I've not run away and escaped like I normally do. I've thought when
yeah,
things shadows come up, I've looked at it rather than like people who, oh no, don't want to deal with it. Um, but and so I think this time of year, it's just like you say, it's that new roots, the cycle of life, that new beginning. And I think for, like you're saying, this time and things don't have to cost anything. Even to me, like woodland's really special for
yeah,
me. So going in the woods can be the best workshop you ever go on. You
yeah,
don't have to, I've had a few people lately talking about wanting to do courses with these people that are costing hundreds or thousands. And I'm like, well, what do you want from the course?
yeah,
What is it? I mean, don't get me wrong, if you're training to do a therapy or something, then yes, you need that. But these are like spiritual courses
yeah,
or meditation courses. And I'm saying, what do you want? What do you actually want? What do you want to feel?
yeah.
And,
People want the answer, but they don't know what the answer is,
yeah,
and I can say that because that was me. That was me, and you just kind of look at yourself and where you are now and what you can do, and those small bits of improvement, getting your routine, and I mean, my kids, you know what mine are like. You've seen my crystal collection because I come and clear your shop out more often than not, but it helps me, and it just balances my energy in my room, and
mhm,
and I sit with it, and sitting at nature. I mean, you're saying there, going out into nature, try doing it barefoot.
yeah,
Get out. If you're listening to this and you're like, "What are you on about nature?" Go on. If you take your morning cup of tea, here's my challenge to you: take it outside, and stand barefoot on your grass if you've got it, on your concrete, wherever. If you can I love it on grass, or stand next to a tree and hold it and ground yourself and root yourself. And yeah, crazy man talking, crazy man talking. Do
No,
it,
but it's
do it, and
yeah,
do it, and tell me I'm crazy.
absolutely.
And
But they've proved things. It's they call it earthing now, don't
earthing,
they? Can't yeah.
grounding, whatever you want to call it. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, exactly, whatever you want to call it. But I think scientifically they've proved that something interacts with the soles of the feet and the
mm.
energy of the earth. Or I don't know. Not that we don't need that scientific proof, but some people do, and that can be some people's lead in, can't it? That you can say,
Yeah.
well, scientifically, then their ears prick up and go, oh, okay, then.
Yeah, people want
Let
the
tell me a
science
bit more.
behind it, but that's
Yeah.
people like you and I, we live in it. We know we live in our kind of case study now, and like I say, get out, ground it, get out, barefoot, get out into nature, and go, and I've been there with the I need this, I need to know, and it's just being a bit of a victim of kind of society because we can get, we can get things delivered to us door. You can kind of get a pizza to your door quicker than you can get a police, than you can get the cops sometimes. Um, you
You
know,
can say that.
well, yeah, I can,
You
yeah.
can.
um,
Yeah.
but the first for wanting the outcome really takes the emphasis away. And I always love this, and I say it often about the journey being sometimes more important than the destination. Because what happens if you go on a spiritual retreat or you pay somebody to do something for you, which is great, all for people progressing their spiritual journeys. I mean, I go for Reiki myself, lots of therapies. They're ingredients, they're almost kind of daily consumables or weekly consumables. For me, Reiki is not it's not a luxury, it's a necessity.
I agree.
And I pitch that across. So I never come out of there looking for the complete version. It's just part of the journey. And if you were to go on a retreat, I could be really sure that I wouldn't come out of there. I'd come out with lots of insights and feel really good and go and do it, absolutely. But please don't think that that's going to be, you're going to come out and I'm complete, because actually, when are you ever complete? When are you ever
Yeah.
complete is the day that you carry on to your next journey, and then you look back, and it's when you say about the journey being more important than the destination, and I got challenged on it the other day, and I'm like, yeah, and people know I do a lot of mountain climbing and a lot, I'm out there, and I'm like, I never sit at the summit, or very rarely sit at the summit for any length of time. Maybe in summer, but even you can argue then, with my bald head catching the sun. And they're like, what are you saying? I was like, I always stop for my food before I get to the summit or when I'm coming back down. And I enjoy the journey, and that's where the fun is. And when you get there, you get your photos and you've done it, but you want to get off, so you've got to keep moving. And that's the message there is keep moving, keep practicing, keep walking your journey, and keep doing the things that serve you. And the thing for me, what I found is there's payment in repetition
Mhm.
around that structure, and I really found it hard because I live such a structured life where every minute of my day was accounted for. And I know you helped me break that down. So work-wise, totally got structure. That's fine, and I can let it off a little bit if I need to. But I have my little morning routine, and sometimes I'll just leave it. I'll do I'll do my things that are important to me. Get myself set up, press my reset button, get myself balanced, ready for the day that I'm about to receive. And then just go with it. And some of the best things and best experiences have happened from not looking for it, just allowing it.
Always being in the flow.
Of course,
Yeah.
yeah, it's powerful.
Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining me. I think you're a true inspiration to people. I really do. And I think what you're doing is, coming out and speaking about it openly and clearly, exactly as you're saying, that this isn't something to be ashamed of. This isn't something that should be hidden. This is me. I think it's just amazing. So thank you for being you.
Thank you. And Liz, you've been a big part of my journey. Like I say, the day I walked into you and I'm like, well, I just don't know what's going on, Liz. And you're like, it's fine. Liz, I'm feeling like this. It's fine. And from there, our friendship's built. And, I feel very privileged to have you as a friend and mentor. And, some other key individuals in my life who have been key to that. And, nonetheless, my amazing partner, Caroline, as well, and my fantastic children. And I hold you in very high regard, Liz, and I love the podcast. And I will say, um, with this, when I started, when you told me that it were out there, I think I messaged you didn't out of the blue because I've been away with work quite a lot, and
Mhm.
I had to have that moment to get myself kind of back grounded again. And I'm like, need to message Liz, and and I'm like, the podcast 100%, and I listened to the first few, and I'm like, this is what people need. When you are on that, you know journey at the start of it, you're inquisitive, you're curious. That, going back to podcast number one and listening through to now, it just fills in the blanks. So it's a really, really good tool. I'm sure there's loads of people out there that are benefiting from it. So keep doing it.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. It's really kind of you to say. So, Kevin, thank you for joining me. Thanks for joining me, guys. And I'll be back next week with another different guest for something that you probably wouldn't expect. Okay, take care. I'll see you soon. Bye.